Today's Ask a Psychology question comes from Steve, and he says, I'm 27 years old and I live at home. I'm very dependent in my personality. I have anxiety and fear of change and a fear of failure. I have obsessional thoughts about the future and I experience what ifs, and I'm afraid to leave my comfort zone. Can you help me address these issues as a big change in my life has occurred with myself getting a job opportunity? That's something that I really desire. Now, Steve, what I would suggest in this space is not actually to look at this question of changing jobs initially, but rather my initial thoughts would be to explore this fear of failure, this, dependent personality that you kind of describe, the fear of change. And the reason why I say that is this question of changing jobs has brought this up. And I don't think that I'd be able to go out and make comment about what to do from a jobs perspective, but more so maybe we can generally kind of consider what does it mean to be dependent and to be fearful of the world. And it sounds like there's some complexities here in that there's lots of concerns, there's lots of mental miles being spent worrying. So whenever I kind of consider worrying and the function of worry, I always think about it in a sense that the mind is kind of like this solution-focused machine. It tries to go out and give answers to any problems that it can find. So I'd say it's in a position where it's trying to come up with any information to go out and solve a problem. Now, part of the issue is when the mind's trying to solve a problem, it asks certain questions. And I think it sounds like the questions that you're asking yourself are kind of taking you into a bit of a loop. Actually, let me rephrase that. I don't think you're actually even probably asking yourself these questions. I think that naturally the mind's going out and posing these questions to you and you're taking them on, in a way that's verbatim. I'd actually ask you to actively, deliberately ask different questions. So rather than trying to figure out why am I feeling this way, why do I feel anxious, I would actually ask a different question about how might I go about feeling more comfortable? How might I go out and stretch myself and get out of my comfort zone? Because I think by getting these reference points of getting out of your comfort zone, there's a greater chance of getting breadth in appreciating and understanding what life could look like. So if your comfort zone, for example, might be at the moment where you might not volunteer to do something in the workplace, I might say maybe consider an experiment where you do put your hand up in the workplace and take on a piece of work that you might not usually do so. Maybe you go out and you socialize a little bit more or go to an event that you might have declined previously. I'm not really sure what those concerns are or what that dependence is that you describe, but the opposite of dependence would be independence. So I would say when you feel like going out and leaning on someone, getting some support, some reassurance, it might be useful to experiment with delaying that for a period or allowing that to pass before you go out and speak with somebody. So it's really about comfort zone stuff, but be gentle with yourself. Don't try and go out and change the world immediately. I don't think that we'd need to go out and make these very quick decisions, but rather something that we can cultivate, that we can work on over time so that you can achieve greater independence. I'm assuming that when you say that you have a dependent personality, I would assume that what you're asking for is how do I become more independent, more confident, more self able. This is stuff that we all have to work on, and in some sense I think if you have been leaning on others, it might just mean that you haven't gone out and either given yourself those opportunities or asked yourself to do that as much as you'd like to have. So begin there rather than the big question about what to do with your job. hope that helps and is the start of being able to kind of branch out and get that internal feedback about what you're capable of doing. So all the best.